What's up guys, in this video we're going to be learning about osmosis. So this is a topic of class 9 biology chapter 5, the structural and functional unit of life. So in this presentation we're going to be learning the difference between osmosis and diffusion, the definition of osmosis, the explanation of osmosis, and the types of solutions taking place in osmosis. So in the cells, the movement of substances takes place. The movement of gases can be defined as diffusion, and the movement of water is known as osmosis. So you might have gotten confused between these two terms, but just remember that diffusion is the movement of gases and osmosis is the movement of water. In this video, we're going to be learning about osmosis. So here is the definition. The text definition of osmosis: the movement of water from a higher concentration to a lower concentration through a selectively permeable membrane is known as osmosis. So by looking at this definition, it might seem like Greek and Latin to you. It might seem like rocket science, and honestly, even when I read this, I didn't understand this either. So I'm going to avoid this definition and I'm just going to pictorially explain osmosis. By understanding the terms higher concentration, lower concentration, and selectively permeable membrane, you will be able to understand what is meant by osmosis. To do that, let's take an example. In this experiment, we're going to have a beaker, and this beaker is going to be divided into two sides by a membrane with holes in it. That will be our selectively permeable membrane. I'll explain what that is in a few moments. So one half of this beaker will be filled with a solution with higher water concentration. So suppose that this blue region is the water and these yellow particles are the salt particles. In this experiment, we're going to be taking the solution as a salt solution. So here the solute is salt and the solvent is water. In a solution with higher water concentration, what it means is that there is more solvent than the solute, or there is more water and there's less salt particles. If there's more water, then it has a higher water concentration, whereas on the right side, this solution has a lower water concentration. Or what that means is that there is more water and there is less salt, or there is less of the solute. So that's what's meant by water concentration. And this partition that we have here is our semi-permeable membrane. So a semi-permeable membrane, also called a selectively permeable membrane, they're both the same thing, means that this membrane or this surface has many pores in it, and it only allows selective or specific substances to enter through at a time. So this experiment can be correlated with the cell. This is just for our understanding, but in reality, osmosis takes place in cells in the same way. The cell has a cell membrane which is selectively permeable, and it only allows a few water particles from a higher concentration to enter into the lower concentration, or vice versa. So in this experiment, according to the laws of osmosis, water moves from a higher water concentration, or a region with more water, to a lower water concentration, or a region with less water. So by doing so, our solution will look like this. As you can see here, the water levels from the higher water concentration have moved to the lower water concentration, because that's how water moves, from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. And it all happens through a selectively permeable membrane. So now let's understand this through the cell. A cell, as we know, is the basic unit of life, and it allows all the functions to take place. And even within the cell, substances move in and out of it. Water also moves through the process of osmosis. Taken that the surrounding medium of the cell has a higher water concentration, and inside the cell there is a lower water concentration, water will move from the higher concentration to the lower water concentration, or it'll move from the surrounding medium into the cell if the cell has a lower water concentration. And all happens through the selectively permeable membrane present in the cell membrane. This can also be taken vice versa. If the cell has a higher water concentration and the surrounding medium has a lower concentration, then the water moves out of the cell. Now let's understand the types of solutions based on the concentration of water. So the first type of solution is a hypotonic solution. So if a cell is contained within water, taken that the water has a higher concentration than the cell, which has a lower water concentration. So if the surrounding medium has a higher concentration than the cell, then what will happen is that the water will enter into the cell. And when that happens, the solution that it takes place in is called a hypotonic solution. So the hypotonic solution is where the surrounding medium has a higher concentration. So the water moves in both directions, but more water moves into the cell than out. And the cell swells up and it becomes bigger in size since it contains all the water that enters through it. Now let us understand hypertonic solutions. Taken that the medium which the cell is surrounded by has a lower water concentration than inside the cell which has a high concentration, then it is a hypertonic solution. In this, since the water concentration inside the cell is higher, the water ends up moving out of the cell, and this causes the cell to shrink. So the third type of solution is an isotonic solution. If the solution has the same concentration as the cell, then it is an isotonic solution. The water does not move, it doesn't move anywhere, it just stays, and the cell stays the same shape because it has the same levels of concentration, so osmosis does not take place. So those are the three types of solutions, and for the topic of osmosis, I've explained all the concepts in a basic way. So hopefully now you've understood osmosis. So it's the movement of water, and it always moves from a high concentration to a low concentration. And when it occurs, it happens through a selectively permeable membrane. So that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you understood. See you in the next one.